Alrighty, let's get underway. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Making Your First Hires webinar, proudly jointly presented or co-sponsored, I'm not sure, Lauren, what we call it, by AWS and MyHR as part of the AWS Startup Masterclass series. Lauren and I did some work together. I presented a couple of months ago now, Lauren, I think. With a bunch of really cool businesses to a community event in Sydney. So really pleased now to bring this to an online audience. As always, when we run these sessions, they are recorded. We will share them through social channels on our website, etc. If you're not able to stay for the whole time, then you've got a reference point to go back to, or if you think you know somebody who might derive some value out of the session, then also you can share the link and invite them along. I'm really up for interaction in these sessions as well. And when it comes to people, culture, employment law, there are some hard and fast rules, but there is a whole lot of subjectivity and a whole lot of opinion. And I don't pretend to know everything. So if you've got a view, by all means, challenge me. If you've got a really great idea, post it, because then it benefits the community. And if you've got a question, then ask me. I'm more than happy to answer questions on the fly. So today, the aim is hopefully to leave you with some value in and around your first hires as a startup. It is such a big decision, right? It is such a massive part of getting going. And we see a lot of common mistakes occur. And when it gets done well, we see the benefits of that. So I'll start just by covering a little bit about me, who I am, how am I here, how am I qualified to even be talking to you about this topic. Then we'll get into some of the practicalities around planning for your first hires, then attracting and onboarding them, and then retaining them, or as the case may be, exiting them, which does happen from time to time, unfortunately. So off we go. A little bit about me. How am I even qualified to be here? I started my career, life, whatever, as a musician. Bizarrely, I ended up as a corporate HR leader working for very large multinational companies like Shell, the Woolworths Group, Henkel, Sky City. I operated at what I call the pointy end of HR, employment relations, large-scale restructures, union negotiations, those sorts of things. Kind of an employment law expert, if you like. And then I pivoted from that as a startup founder. Now I guess I'm a scale-up CEO and investor, as we've taken MyHR kind of out of that startup phase. I'm a subject matter expert founder. I'm not a technical founder. I can't write a line of code to save myself. I have a deep and a set of knowledge and experience in and around HR and employment law across international jurisdictions. And my co-founder and I identified a problem that needed a solution. And a software as a service HR platform was the answer to that problem. And this is really interesting. As startup founders in the audience today, I once saw, I think it was Rod Drury, the co-founder of Xero, talk about some of the investments he was looking to make and seeing a lot of solutions hunting for problems. And so people sort of decide they want to be in SaaS. They get they drink the Kool-Aid, they get the drug, they're ready to go. But develop apps that don't actually have defined product market fit or have a solution. We actually didn't start thinking that software as a service was even a thing for us until we really fleshed out what the problem was. And then we did some market testing and we identified some product market fit, and it was very clear what the solution was to an existing problem. Our USP at MyHR is that we are software with human support. It's a tech-enabled HR function. We provide a complete wraparound solution to SME. It is absolutely driven by technology. We have a front-end HR information system that is an app that we have built that drives human resource management, compliance, engagement in business. And then we have a secondary app that we have also built that is ours. It is essentially HR practice management. And this is quite unique. As far as we're aware, unique in the world. And this drives real efficiencies into our team. We have a team of HR professionals as part of our customer success function. And this software allows us to deliver custom-written employment contracts, restructures, disciplinaries, daily advice, chats, conversations, HR management for our clients at a scale that's far better than corporate. So we have one HR person to every 2,000 employees. The latest Gartner report said that the corporate ratio is like one HR to every 67 employees. So you get an idea of our efficiency. So tech is at our core, but we have a human support element that makes it really unique. We're 10 years old. We've got 75 staff, over 35,000 users, 2,000 clients. Our smallest client has 2 staff. Our largest has 750, and we're across all industries in Australia and New Zealand. We launched in New Zealand, so we're New Zealand dominant, probably 80% of clients and revenue there, 20% Australia, so we're sort of Australian startup. and the Canada launch is pending this year, early next year. Some metrics, I always like to talk a little bit about how we are going, especially in these presentations. You often get founders talking about their business size in terms of value. We're a $100 million business. It doesn't necessarily mean they're turning over $100 million. It's a multiplier they've arbitrarily applied to their revs. So we're in the region of a $10 million annual year business. We churn only at 7%, so we have fantastic retention metrics. Our lifetime value to customer acquisition cost ratio is 8:1. Our rule of 40 is 40 to 45, depending, and we're at a 51% compound annual growth rate. We are a bootstrap startup and we are profitable. So 5 years in, we achieved cash flow positivity. Cash flow positive is better than profitable, and we reinvest our money. We don't ever pay a dividend, but we have bootstrapped our way to this point. That being said, we are about to raise some capital to accelerate Australia and Canada. So that's us. So I have some subject matter expertise around HR and hiring I'd like to share with you, but I also have the lived experience of a startup founder. So hopefully there's some relevance there. So let's dive into it. Let's get into the core topic here and talk about where this should start. And it starts with planning, right? It really genuinely does. And it sounds so simple and so obvious, but it's so often not the case when it comes to hiring. And I make the first point because the audience, I'm sure, will differ. You may be raising capital so you have funds in the bank ready to deploy, or like us, you might be a bootstrapped startup looking to fund your growth as you get revenue, offset maybe with some bank loans, or I think in the case of Atlassian, where they have a 10K credit card bill that they use to fund their early days. So, and there's an example of a classic bootstrap startup. It's now a multi-billion-dollar listed company. But cap raise or bootstrap, the methodology around your first hires shouldn't actually change. Only the pace does. If you're being owned by a VC who's given you the 5, the 10, the 100, the $200 million and wants you to ramp and hire 50 people a month for the next 6 months, versus a bootstrap that's maybe hiring 1 or 2 people a month or a year, depending on your growth rate, the methodology behind that shouldn't really change. It's really just about a pace thing. And by methodology, I mean how you structure your recruitment thinking in your first hires. It all starts with your strategy. So just stop and pause instead of thinking about your kind of one foot in front of the other recruitment, which so often we see. There's people will often apply a playbook. Okay, we need some sales, we need some inside sales. There's SDRs, there's BDMs, there's some dev because we want to accelerate product, and we apply the playbook and we go recruiting these people. It's a flawed approach because under the headlines of dev and sales marketing, there are a multitude of different roles and skill sets, which is obvious, right? We get this, but so often we seem to forget this when it comes to recruiting. So elevate away from what does the next single hire look like, and look firstly at your 3-year goal. What's the plan for this business in 3 years, and then chuck that back to year 1 and then 4 quarters. And once you are clear on that, there's a really nice, even sort of set of a flow that happens in terms of how you define and then get about recruiting. So what do you want to achieve in 12 years? Therefore, what work needs to be done to achieve that? The work, the tasks, the goals, they define then jobs that you need to complete this work. And then that flows through easily into who you should hire. It genuinely is that simple. We apply a similar methodology at the other end when it comes to restructures and redundancies and how you determine what the new structure of your organization should look like. So let's just take an example. What do you want to achieve? We want to be $12 million of annual recurring revenue. I use that number because I can divide it into 12 months. I'm HR, not math guy. We want $12 million of ARR at the end of this year. So 12 mil means we need $1 million of MRR. To get $1 million total of MRR, or as the end number, we need $83,000 of new MRR every month that compounds and builds up to that 1 million. We factor in some churn. So there's your number. So how big are our deal sizes? How many new clients do we need to achieve $83,000 a month? Is it 2? Is it 10? Is it 100? And then how many salespeople do we need to do that? What is our sales methodology? Are we looking for BDMs and enterprise sort of sales? Are we small business? Are they SDRs, hustlers, and cold callers? Are they doing 60 calls a day, or are they taking 2 meetings a month to close the big deals? Just check, I've got a question. The planning point makes a ton of sense. The challenge is the product market fit hurdle. You could be very wrong about how long it takes to make your customers happy and find enough of them. How do you think about fitting this into your plan? i.e. the monthly, the MRR metrics we're using in your example are highly dependent on how quickly you get the PMF to get the amount of MRR. Yeah, 100%. So absolutely product market fit. But this goes back to this first point. It's a great question. Thanks, Jean-Philippe. It's an awesome question. It goes back to this kind of idea here around starting with the plan. If you're yet to define, if you are, really early stage startup and defining product market fit is kind of part of this, then you're going to need to build into that hiring plan this go-to-market that is around identifying who you think your customers are, what you determine their needs to be, and testing that really quickly. A/B testing and iterating, right? So don't chuck 10 salespeople at a product that you haven't quite defined that PMF for. So step it back a little bit. And this is where the SaaS kind of hiring playbook can trip you up. So defining product market fit is fundamentally the first key step. There is no point peddling something people do not want to buy. But at some point, you're going to have to get to market and start selling a product to get that feedback, to get people saying, well, I don't really want it, but if it did this, I would. And then you can pivot, and then you can make some adjustments. So I would say if you're at a stage where you're not clear on your PMF, that is the first part of what this 12-month plan and 4 quarters look like. How do you get to market, A/B test that? And when you're ready and you're comfortable that it's there, 60 to 80%, say, then you start amplifying sales and marketing in and around that. Because we do often see this, capital's been raised, we're going to hire 5 salespeople and they're going to go out and we're going to make $1 million a day. And in fact, salespeople come back quite demotivated because they're making many, many, many calls and they're getting rejected. The customers are saying, actually, we don't want what you're selling. And so that's a critical part of this 3-year goal down to the 12 months, down to the 4 quarters. And through that process, you really will find that it defines, what this hiring looks like. And again, in a bootstrap world, it's 1 or 2 of these key hires. And this is where planning becomes critical because you will have to make line calls. Do we get the dev to accelerate our product? Do we get the sales to accelerate our revenue? We can't afford both. How does that work? And with cap raising, it's about, the flood of new people coming in. Next point I'll make is outsource all non-core admin and compliance, HR, accounting, IT, payroll, travel booking, DevOps. And I'm going to use the great Jeff Bezos quote, nothing to do with this being sponsored by AWS, but the Acquired podcast guys use this all the time. I don't know them. I've got nothing in this, but I would highly recommend you listen to it if you haven't. But they talk about Bezos' quote around focus on what makes your beer taste better. And I'm not going to give you an education on that. Go look it up and look what it means. It's a great quote. And this is where outsourcing your non-core really helps. And those non-core admin things you just don't want to be burdened with as a startup founder. And outsourcing gives you so much flexibility. And it gives you the ability to turn things on and off as your rev profile changes. If you have a bit of a hard time, you don't have to worry about making people redundant because you're just managing an outsourced provider. Then look beyond those core compliance functions. What else might be outsourced? Marketing, sales, dev. Do you have some in-house, some outside? Do you have, say, in your marketing team, some core people internally, but a social media agency and copywriters externally to help with your content strategy? How do you balance that? Again, going back to based on your plan, what do you want to achieve in this year? Maybe this year you don't need any marketing because you're still trying to determine that core product market fit, your A/B testing, and it's actually boots on the ground speaking to business owners if you're a B2B product and trying to get some idea of how this works before you then amplify the marketing. Sales, inside, outside sales, outsourced sort of cold calling companies versus, enterprise level BDMs. DevOps, devs. There's a whole lot of kind of additional software development support that you can engage that does not have to be employed. So you work that out. And then short to medium term projects go to contractors, not employees. Because it's easy to turn them on and off as you need it. If the project finishes earlier, there's no sort of consultation process, it makes sense. Your employees, your core staff, you have legal obligations to. You want to treat them well. Obviously, you want to build a culture that's got the same vibe that you as the startup founder has. And so the balance between employees, outsourced providers, and contractors, that kind of triangle is pretty key. Tech has a part to play too. We'll talk about that next. Jean-Philippe, I hope that addressed your question there. The next part of defining, these first hires is defining your role. Because if you're pure startup, in the early days, you're 100% of the workforce, right? If you're a co-founder business, you're 50% of the workforce. But as you grow, your presence in the business is a significant percentage of the workforce. So look at what you can do that nobody else can do. Are you a technical founder? Are you the code guru? Have you identified how you can code this thing into life in a way that no other dev can? Are you like me, a subject matter expert founder? You have deep knowledge of the product, of the problem you're trying to solve, and of how we build it. You just need technical support to do that. You are most definitely the chief evangelist and visionary. You're holding the torch in the dark tunnel for everybody to follow, especially those early days of startups when it does feel pretty dark at times, right? So these are the things that you can do that nobody else can do, that you can't outsource, you can't hire for, okay? I want to do a bit of a shout out on the second bullet point because everyone will tell you to work on the business, not in the business. A classic business cliche, it's the playbook. We've taken the SWOT analysis off the shelf. We've applied the business 101 template to us, and there's a big quote about working on the business, not in the business. Get it, right? Initially, you won't, and it's okay, so don't beat yourself up. Just have a clear plan for getting out of the weeds. In those early days, you are going to be doing a bit of everything, running the payroll, sweeping the floor, buying the coffee, whatever it is, you name it, you'll do it, and that's all right. And in fact, in the early days, it's kind of cool in a way. It just shows this level of really tactile commitment you have for your business, and your new teams see it and they really value it. They think it's pretty cool, believe me. And it's the sort of thing you don't get from corporate CEOs. But just don't build that into your MO. That is not part of your ongoing role. But in the early days, you will. Don't sweat it. It's okay. Just have a clear plan for when you get out of the weeds and you have people that can do that stuff for you, and you're focusing on the first bullet point, the thing that you can do that nobody else can do. Once all of this is clear, the first hiring decisions become really clear. Are they sales? Is it dev? Is it customer success? Is it design? Is it marketing? Or what combination of all? So the blue text here just simply says, what skills will support the achievement of the goals that can't be outsourced and that you cannot or should not do yourself, and that equals your first hires. So that's a very, very quick way of rolling through this planning process. But trust me, from experience and from my own lived experience and from the experience of supporting many startups to do this, if you take some time to plan this, it will be really powerful for you. And again, whether you are a cap-funded hyper growth or whether you are bootstrapped, slow and steady growth, this will really help you define who those first hires should be, and then your go-to-market strategy for hiring. Go-to-market for hiring is in a way very similar to go-to-market for product. And one of the things I'll note, like a lot of the funded businesses we see, one of those early hires, because the VCs are riding them to hire fast, they'll grab a people and culture person. And again, that may not be the ideal first hire. It might actually be a transactional recruitment expert that you need to simply do all the legwork to get these hires on the ground. People and culture in those early days are you and your co-founder, if you have a co-founder. It's this chief evangelist piece. You are owning and leading from the front in and around your culture. That might be a functional HR support person you need before you need a people and culture person. So again, this is where planning really helps. If you're really small, it's you and it's this first hire. This is this tension between, is it sales, dev, customer, design, marketing? That will be determined by that 12-month plan. Are we still trying to determine product market fit? Okay, that's part of the goal for the 12 months. How do we do this? How do we determine we have PMF or not? That will outline some work. That work will then naturally translate to roles. That's the recruitment planning process. Then we get to attracting and onboarding, the function of recruiting, of being in market. So the first thing I will say, and this is across the board, this is not just startups, but I think it's really important for startups because you're kind of operating from 0 employees, complete blank canvas, right? Clearly define any job and its remuneration before you go to market. Don't use the campaign to define jobs on the fly. Again, this might sound obvious, but it's incredible how often we see this occur. And in a way that kind of trips people up. They go to market, you advertise salesperson or BDM, business development manager. And the feedback from our clients is, I'm seeing all these people, but they're not quite the right fit, but they're kind of awesome. I think it's not this job, it's that. And you end up recutting the job and hiring a person because you like them or you connect with them. That's a really inefficient way to recruit, and it increases the risk you get the wrong person. When you're clear on what you need, let's say it's an SDR, we need a high volume, cold calling, hustling SDR. Our deal velocity is high. We don't need an enterprise salesperson. When you are really clear on that and you're focused absolutely on it, and you go to market and you get an enterprise BDM apply because he or she's just been made redundant from insert large company currently going through redundancies. There's a number of them out there. And you might be tempted by the glossy CV and the experience. You can clearly go, this is not the role. We need an SDR, we need a hustler, we need 60 calls a day. We know that 60 calls will convert to 5 meetings. We know that 5 meetings will convert to 1 sale. Whatever your kind of deal metrics or funnel looks like, you can confidently walk away from candidates. And the remuneration is key. And this is not about a negotiation process for remuneration, but remuneration done right helps you define the job and the level you need. If this is let's say it's an 85K SDR plus upside, if you get $150,000 a year salesperson applying, they're not the person you want. If your remuneration is benchmarked accurately to market, it defines a level of experience, a stage of life, and a stage of career that is fair and relevant. Anyone outside of that is potentially not the fit for your job. So get it right, go to market. It's like a targeted marketing campaign. So you can think about recruitment in very much the same way you think about sales and marketing. And it makes the whole process so much more efficient, and you don't waste time speaking to people who are clearly not a fit for the job. If you meet somebody and you think they're awesome, but there's not quite a right, just agree to stay in touch. That's totally fine. The second point is what I call the recruitment mindset. Adopt a recruitment mindset. So don't think about recruitment as a series of one-off transactions, which is so often what we see happen. Recruitment is an ongoing hunt for the best talent, no matter the size of your business, but particularly in the world of startup. And it's everything. And as the founder, this is one of these things as chief evangelist you can do. You're in a coffee shop, you get served by a person, they're awesome. You have a chat. What are you doing? Oh, this is my part-time job. I'm studying marketing at university. Oh, what's your interest? Oh, social media marketing is kind of what I really like. Awesome. Well, let's have a chat. And we've done this before. We hire HR students who work with us on a casual basis, kind of in and around the uni timetable and in holidays. It's the best part-time job they can have. They're not at a fast food joint. They're working in the career that they're studying towards. And when they graduate, they already know us. There's no onboarding. They pivot to a full-time employee. And we have a really, really nice retention rate. And a boomerang club, we call them. They might leave to get some external experience and come back. This ongoing recruitment mindset really will help you. I have another question from Alicia. Thanks, Alicia. How do you deal with advertising for roles where the remuneration is flexi as you're expecting them to pay for themselves, e.g. sales and marketing? Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd say sales more, marketing paying for themselves. This gets into the messy world of attribution. There's so much about marketing that is just about building your brand and filling the top of that funnel. You can't necessarily attribute every single marketing campaign to every single closed deal. You can do a bit of it, but you'll end up down a real rabbit hole trying to figure out exactly the dollars that every single campaign returned and whether that was worthwhile. But sales, yes, is easy. The first thing is that they do need to pay for themselves. But again, go back to the planning, and then I'll talk about then how you advertise that. So you understand what the salesperson must deliver in terms of that 12-month goal. Let's use the $83,000 monthly, and let's say it's a 5K per BDM quota. So 5K per month is the target. You can work out then on a base plus commission model, because commission pays for it as they earn it, base plus overhead. I should have said what they are worth, and that might look like a cost to your business of around 2K. So the absolute minimum is this sort of $2,000 achievement. Otherwise, you're going under. And then the goal is to achieve the 5K. You're clear on that in the background. Then do some remuneration benchmarking around what the BDMs in your industry get as a base plus upside. Build a really good commission structure. So, for example, we have an uncapped upside commission. And so the earning potential for our BDMs and SDRs when they really get going is quite phenomenal, and we want them to succeed. We want them hitting 6 figures. We want them heading towards 7 figures if at all possible, because when they win, we win. And so how you then advertise that, or how you talk about it, is you hit on a really good base salary that will show up in market as something credible, and then talk in depth about the quality of your upside commission. And that gives that ownership. Sales, in so many respects, is the easiest to manage. And as HR people, we really like it. It's so binary. Here are the targets. Are you hitting them or not? Now, if someone's not, don't just immediately assume they're terrible and kind of chuck them out. Identify why, and hear their feedback. And work on a way to help them do it. But I believe, as for sales advertising in a startup, you can go to market and really sell that upside. Again, assuming you've got product market fit. So going back to the first question we had, we've got a good product, we've identified demand, we know it, we're talking realistically about our TAM, our total addressable market. And then from TAM, it's the addressable, serviceable, attainable. And so we're talking about a $1 billion opportunity here, of which if we just get 1% of that, it looks like this, and then that flows through to here. So you can advertise in a way that sells that kind of startup dream, that talks about, look, a good solid base, we'll look after you, but the rest is an upside. That's how we advertise it. It works pretty well for us. Hope that answers your question. Great question. Keep them coming. Next one, after this kind of idea of this recruitment mindset, kind of always being on the hunt, and believe me, it works. The next thing is get the basics right. Just because you're a small startup does not mean you have to look unprofessional. Look like a pro from the start. It builds trust, right? And this is this thing in the next bullet around the hygiene factors earn you the right to build better employment relationships. And so often we lose this. And as startups, we can look as slick as enterprises now because of the availability of tech and software that supports. And then shameless plug, this is what MyHR does, obviously, for human resources. But there are so many other apps now out there that will help you do good payroll. Small companies in the old dark days had to run manual pays. Everything we do now in a small business, whether we've got 1 employee or 100, can be done in a way that is slick, professional, and this builds trust. It makes sure new employees feel like they're working for a company that has a clue, and that's really important in a startup because people are taking a punt on us, right? Especially in those early days. Is this thing going to work? Am I going to be part of another kind of raise big and failed story and I'll be redundant in 6 months? I've got a job, I've got a mortgage to service or rent to pay. Do I want to join this startup? The basics early on are so important. And it's not that hard to do, but again, it's often overlooked. Just get it right. And by the way, the enterprises are not as slick as they would have you believe. So often you can actually be better than enterprise. You welcome people in, there's a clear onboarding plan, there's a welcome pack, there's a decent contract that reflects the offer you've made verbally. So often we see this. Oh, yeah, join us. We've got some upside bonus and we've got some shares and we've got all this stuff, and they agree verbally. They get the contract and it's some stock standard kind of Fair Work Australia download that just, that anybody, in any job might get. That really undermines trust before you get started. So hygiene factors are important. Then have a clear and structured onboarding plan for every new hire. And this is important because you will often be using the onboarding process as kind of an extension of recruitment. So in the high growth cap-funded model, you're hiring so many people so frequently at such a cadence that you will make some dud hires. And the onboarding plan will really help work that out quickly. And that gets people straight into kind of the culture of your business, understanding your vision, your values, where you're going, and then their job, what they need to do to succeed. And if they're not doing it, you're having meaningful conversations early on, and you can make good, hard line calls about in or out. The other thing about onboarding is it will help you ramp people faster. And this is so important in startup because we don't have time. To the point earlier about salespeople needing to pay for themselves. What is the ramp time? How long can we fund you making, 1 deal a month till you get to 1 deal a day? And that is built into your onboarding plan. Last point, therefore, is use technology to help you because this is what HR tech or onboarding technology, performance review technology is there to do. Similarly with your accounting software package, your payroll software package, and anything else you need, your CRM, there is so much tech to help you as a small business or as a startup do this stuff and do it well. So now you've hopefully attracted some good people, a lot of or a few of, depending. You've got that right mix of outsourcing, contractor, and employee. You're working towards your 12-month plan, which will ultimately feed your 3-year plan. You've got a technology base that's going to help you deliver it, and you're on. You're off to the races, as they say. It might be only 3 of you in a room. It might be 5 of you, or you might have bought a whole floor of a WeWork somewhere, and now you've got 100 staff and you're trying to figure out what to do. But what you will find is you're now in a place where there is a lot less chaos, you're a lot more focused, and you've massively reduced the chance of those dud hires and those misfires. So now we go on to the retain or exit stage. And so the first thing I want to talk to about retaining people in a startup is something that we call the SME advantage. It's not actually trademarked. I just kind of put that in there because we've been talking about it a lot over this last year, particularly last year when there was just hiring craziness going on. And I don't know if any of you were in market, certainly in Sydney. A lot of the big companies, US tech companies and the big Aussie tech cos were just chucking money around $5,000, $10,000 sign-on bonuses, paying the sales team their full OTE, and then assuming they'll make quota. Some crazy stuff sort of happening. So we started talking about the SME advantage. This is something that as startups we have, or I had when I was a startup, and it's this ability to be human and flexible and to connect, right? So firstly, be flexible around your benefit strategy. Bigger companies are constrained by their HR departments and their policies. If they want to offer gym membership, then someone in HR has got to write a policy and it's got to be assigned to everybody in the company in an equitable way. Now, 80% of the company might not be interested in gym membership, so the value of these kind of big corporate benefits are diluted, which often means they sort of don't react very well to individuals or really apply much of the benefits. The day of kind of complex benefit structures have sort of passed. In a small business and in a startup, we can be highly responsive to the needs of people. So this might be a gym membership for somebody, parking for somebody else. It might be every week they want to work in their in a beach house outside of the city, wherever that may be, wherever you might be based. All of the stuff that you can offer in a small environment because you have this one-on-one connection to your people. The career development we can offer is really quite compelling. And I have people that have been with us since we started, so coming on a decade of work with us, which blows my mind. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. And that ability to go from being a grad at MyHR and now to being a senior operator in our business, that is super exciting. And you can do that. Offer equity stakes where you can. When we talk about equity stakes and ESOPs, make sure that they are meaningful. For these to work, there needs to be some liquidity event. So this is a double-edged sword. I often get asked to advise on ESOPs and what you should do and how much you should give away and why. Any good remuneration strategy is really designed around the behaviours and outcomes you're trying to drive. And if there's no clear liquidity event, an ESOP becomes kind of meaningless because you can say it's worth $100 million, but if you're never going to actually realise that, it doesn't mean anything. ESOPs in listed companies are easy because there's a market already trading shares. So if part of your 3-year plan is to list your company or to sell your company, there's a clear liquidity event on your horizon that you are working towards. ESOP can be quite powerful because if you say, as it today, we're valued at 10 million, we want to exit at 100 million, and you're going to have a percentage of that, and that looks like this, great retention strategy. But if you don't, ESOPs can potentially tie you up in admin and compliance and legals to get a whole bunch of contracts out that don't really flow to a meaningful outcome. But it's a thing you can consider. You can give people a stake in your business, those key employees. Founder power. This might sound a little cheesy, but it's a genuine thing. You are the founder of the business, the CEO of the business. You have the vision, you have the energy, you're excited about it, you're pumped about it, you're directly connected to these employees in a way that corporates do not have. You slot in as a kind of number in a large environment. And this all leads to that connection to the vision and strategy. And so the SME advantage, or the startup advantage, if we want to call it that, is really all about this personal connection that we can establish and foster, and for quite some time. So even now at 75 employees, we still, I think, do pretty good at this. And I'll give you an example. Our parental leave policy is we don't have one, right? I don't have a written policy for parental leave, and you might think as an HR company that's kind of crazy. There's a baseline, clearly, that is the law. But our policy is whenever any of our employees decide to or are surprised by a pregnancy and they need to think about now navigating life as a parent, we simply go to them and say, what do you want? What do you want to do? How much time do you want off, and how do you want to manage your return? And if you don't know, let's just work as we go. So it might be 6 months off and then a full-time return. That might be 2 years off and a part-time return, or variations of iterations of. And we will work with our team to give them the best possible outcomes. And we've had all sorts of, I think there have been, last count, maybe 14 now, babies born sort of from our employees, which is pretty cool. And we offer this completely flexible response to it, as opposed to this blanket corporate policy that says A, B, and C, and if you choose not to come back in the role that was vacated, then you may not have a job to come back to, and all this kind of nonsense. It's quite disengaging and really unsettling for parents. So this is an example of us deploying our SME advantage and going, yeah, we can do this. And the reason we can do this is because, as you know, with parental leave, you need to hold the job for the statutory period that the person has left, so the parent has left, so they can come back to it. Because we're a scaler, we can effectively replace that job in terms of headcount and leave that job vacant, waiting for them to make a decision. Because as we grow, we will be hiring more and more people around that role anyway. And so they have complete flexibility to say, actually, I only want to come back a day a week, or I'd like to extend my leave by another 6 months because I'm really enjoying being at home. And so this is hugely powerful. And so don't underestimate this SME advantage. And this is part of your retention strategy. In that is this connection division. So I recommend a cadence around a monthly or a quarterly, all hands get together, share the vision, share where you're going, talk about the good, talk about the bad, get people's buy-in. The second point and final point is around firing fast. And I know it sounds a bit negative, but bad hires are a major drain and they are culture killers, particularly in small startups, right? They will drain your time and energy. They will drain the time and energy of others, and they will pull you further away from that goal, that quarterly, annual, 3-year goal. And they will undermine your culture like nothing else. When you've got 5 people, one poorly performing person is 20% of your entire workforce not fronting. And so you imagine what that does to your productivity, your output, but also your culture. Failing to deliver, to deal with it, if you're conflict averse and you're not dealing with the problem, not only has issues in terms of that individual relationship, there is a knock-on effect to others in your business who witness this going on and see that nothing's being done about it. And you may lose good people as a result of failing to deal with an issue like this. So all of the steps that got us to here, so clearly defining a job, going to market, knowing what you want, therefore hopefully hiring what you knew you wanted, rolling the person in through a well-structured onboarding plan so they have every opportunity to succeed, they understand your vision and values so the behavioural expectations are clear. All of these things get to a point where the person is either completely failing to perform in the job or is both failing to perform and is a toxic personality. Your ability to make a quick move to exit somebody is so much easier at this point. So everything prior to that leads to this ability to fire fast. And it's moving people on with dignity. This sounds harsh, but this is not about being, table slamming, shouting, aggressive approach to exiting people. It's a conversation around what's clearly not the right fit. Okay, and that is just a clear process, some consultation, and it often results in agreement. People go, yeah, no, you're right. Actually, I don't like it here anyway, or I don't think I can do this job. I'm feeling a bit embarrassed about it. And you will find, surprisingly, a surprising number of times that this will end in a kind of mutually agreeable outcome. The other point around firing fast is you want to make really sure that you are firing for the right reasons, right? And so, and this is really common in startups. If you're kind of working out a million different things and you're trying to do different things here, if you haven't done the planning going into the role, and you get to this point and you're saying, well, this person is not performing. If you haven't defined the job properly, and we often find this as HR practitioners, we go in and help and consult and talk to the business. And actually the individual's awesome. They are very, very good at what they do. But what they do is not required in the job they're in. And so somewhere along the process, there's been this kind of misfire. They turned up to the interview, they were great, there was a bit of a vibe and a connection. They had some skills that we thought we needed in a startup, because let's face it, we need all skills in a startup. So it's about prioritizing the skills we really need. And so we've hired the person and they're on board, but they're the square peg in the round hole. I mean, so, this is a fault of maybe a recruitment process. And looking at what the person was hired for versus the skill set they have, and then asking yourself, well, can you deploy those skills in a different way and get value from a person you've already invested time in an onboarding, may save you exiting someone who would otherwise add value. So it's a really clear-cut decision, but it will also help you, as most people are conflict averse, it will help you just front it and go, absolutely the right thing is to exit this person. And even though I don't feel comfortable about it, I don't like it, it doesn't sit well with me, I'm a bit frightened about it, it is something I need to do. And I know unequivocally that it's the right outcome for the business, for the other people in the business, for our customers, and for myself. And so that's the fire fast aspect of it. And that concludes the first hire process. So getting us from the planning right through to going to market, hiring, onboarding, and then I'm just unsharing. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. And then right to the end of retaining and growing our people or exiting them if we need to. So there is a lot of content there. Each slide kind of lends itself to a whole strategy session. As startup founders, there are a million things going on for you. I know, I get it. It becomes about prioritizing as you're building budgets, as you're looking at ramp, as you're doing the product work, you're doing the product market fit work, you're doing your A/B testing, you're pivoting, you're getting challenged maybe by investors around whether this is the right market or not, or the right product or not, the right solution or not. And amongst all of that, at some point, if you've got a business that's going to work, you're going to need to hire some people. And I implore you to do that in a way that has planned, structured, and staged, instead of just applying a kind of SaaS playbook template to that, and hiring an SDR, a BDM, a dev, and a customer success person, and then hoping that that's just going to make it fly, because that's these are the job titles you'd see in all SaaS businesses. That planning process is critical. So thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoy these sessions. Thank you to those who asked questions. They were awesome. I always love it. If you have questions post-event, if you're thinking on this, please reach out to me. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You can email me direct if you like. It's just jason@myhr.works. I'm always up for a chat. I really enjoy this stuff, and I'm really stoked with where we've got to. And I love to kind of share the knowledge. And our journey is different to the companies that decide to raise early. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a decision. So happy to chat to you about what bootstrapping looked like in our world. And a question about maybe please receive a copy of the recording to rewatch. Yes, absolutely. So we will post this on our website, our socials. I think Lauren will do the same. We'll share it through LinkedIn. So the full recording will be available. You'll see the slides there. If you want a copy of the slide deck itself, just ping me and I'll just PDF it and send it to you. That's no problem. And then any follow-up questions, as I say, reach out. But yes, there will be a full recording available. So, right, everybody, thank you so much. And thank you, Lauren. It's been great working with you again. I just realised I think the way this recording's set up, you can't speak. It's only me. So I really wanted to include you. You're kind of on silent mode over there. But anyway, I'll catch you again. I think, can I unmute you maybe? Are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I can hear. I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, again, such a wealth of information, and what we're really excited about doing these series for is because we're getting the right information in the hands of startup founders when it really matters. So thanks for sharing that amazing knowledge, Jason, and look forward to following up with everybody as well.
Yeah, awesome. No, I really enjoyed it. So thank you. All right, take care, everyone. Go well, and let's get out there. Hey, cheers. Bye bye.